Welcome to Tech in the Right Direction, the podcast. This week, I'll be speaking with Kimberly Fox. Kimberly leads virtual corporate cooking classes and is a recipe developer and writer for her food blog, From Market to Table. Kimberly developed her signature corporate cooking experiences after spending 10 plus years working in STEM and experiencing the gender inequities and microcultures in the corporate culture. Now she leverages her understanding of STEM and well-tested recipes to help leaders build inclusive teams and close the gender gap. Welcome to the show, Kimberly. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here today.
Great. So let's get started. So Kimberly, as a woman in tech, can you share with us your career journey and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah. So I actually started out in biochemistry. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I fell into analytical chemistry. And I spent about 6 years in analytical chemistry. And during that time, in my really early 20s, I developed chronic neck pain and was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. And I didn't want to live my life in pain. And so I ended up turning to food to try and figure out what types of foods could be triggering my symptoms and how I could use food to help me live a more vibrant life in general. And so I really got into visiting the farmers market and reading science-based cookbooks, and I just really fell in love with food. And so going to graduate school for food science seemed like a natural progression. At that time, I was pretty much pain-free with my neck pain, and I was really excited just to move on and doing something that I loved. And what ended up happening is when I graduated in 2020, it wasn't the ideal time to graduate, obviously, because of COVID. And I ended up starting a food blog, and that's how my trajectory turned away from food science into more of the culinary food science space.
That's so exciting to me. I'm fascinated by restaurants and I'm a huge foodie. So, how do you go from STEM to cooking experiences? And I know you said, you were trying to find the right foods that would make you have a vibrant life. But how does STEM and food relate?
Yeah, so a lot of people there's like the culinary side of food that's more of the restaurant side, and a lot of people that want to work in restaurants go to the culinary path, whereas the food science path is more of the I want to develop food for food companies and have them be products on the shelves. And so what I did was I took my analytical chemistry background and I applied it to developing food for the food industry in graduate school. I initially envisioned that I would be in the food quality and safety space because I really enjoyed that in analytical chemistry. And so that was my initial idea of taking that part of STEM, of the analytical chemistry side, and bringing that into the food space.
That's neat. That's very neat. So, many years ago, I did do a team building exercise with my team and another team from Microsoft many, many years ago. And it was a great, great experience. So, team building with corporate cooking experiences, tell us more.
So when I decided that I wanted to monetize my blog through corporate cooking experiences, I chose women in STEM because I'm really passionate about empowering women in STEM, and cooking experiences provides the gateway to be able to empower women in STEM and build inclusive teams. And one thing that I was really intentional about when designing these classes is that I wanted people and teams to leave feeling like their cup was full and that they felt a sense of belonging and develop new connections with team members that they might not have interacted with before. And so during this process, I really dove into understanding how to develop gatherings where, in order to get the outcome that I wanted. And so I studied Priya Parker, and I studied all of these people that spend their lives developing gatherings in order to help people connect.
That's really cool. Wow. So I'm trying to understand. So you create the experience, and then people come to you, or do you go out to a third party, cooking place? How does that work?
So these are virtual cooking classes.
Yeah. Okay.
And so they're virtual. So they're meant to be virtual. So everyone is in their own kitchen. And I developed the recipes so that even the most novice cooking person who does not cook, does not even want to go near a pan, are able to make these dishes and be able to walk away with, wow, I can't believe I did this.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, well, it's also like creating a connection. People love connecting around food in general. You see it in restaurants, you see it in gatherings you have in your house. So you're able to take something that people naturally connect over and apply it to team building.
So is it one person that takes the class, multiple people? How do you do that? Do you invite friends over? How do you do that?
So I cook in my own kitchen, and then everyone virtually cooks in their own kitchen, and we all cook, and I teach them how to make the recipe, and we all cook together. So in my classes, we do a cocktail and then a main course, and the cocktail becomes part of the main experience of being able to be able to we share stories giving toast to one another. So you incorporate the cocktail with the overall experience.
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm going to join one of your classes one of these days. Because I said, once I retire, I want to learn how to cook, because we go out so much, and maybe this is my start. I'm really excited.
Yeah. And it's kind of fun because you can do cooking classes in a lot of different ways for team building. People can bring their whole entire team if they're globally or just locally. It's a way for them to gather remotely all together. Or you can do it with just friends, like you said. Like if you just have a group of friends and you want to be able to connect in a new way together, you can also use cooking experiences that way. So that's why they're really good for team building, is because you can use them in so many different ways. And the more that I work in this space, the more I realize how many different ways that they can be used to help people connect.
That's so great. And I'm loving that you're doing it virtually. That way you can bring in people from all over the world if you wanted to, right? There are companies that are worldwide. That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's becoming more and more common to have teams spread out, just the way that the climate is. And so you no longer have that barrier that you have to be in the same town in order to feel that you can connect with your team. I think the best compliment I've gotten so far is someone telling me, I didn't even realize I was I didn't even realize that I was on Zoom. I felt like I was in person.
That's great. That's great.
So,
that's a testament to what you put together.
Yeah. And so I'm like, that's what I want them to feel. So the fact that people are telling me what I want to hear and what I intended to create the experience is really exciting.
That's great. So, we touched on this with the pandemic. Remote work is very common today. And sometimes it's a hybrid culture of people in the office and at home. So how do you create a culture that employees feel connected to?
Yeah, I think that this is such a good question. I think it's something that is on everybody's minds
Mhm.
right now as we go into hybrid work and we talk about the Zoom ceiling instead of the glass ceiling. How do you connect people in a hybrid environment? And one of the right now I'm working with an organization that said we acquired members that are not in the area during the pandemic because they were doing all virtual meetings, and so anyone could join.
Mhm.
And now these people, now that they've gone back to in person, they started feeling, the people that are remote that aren't able to attend in person, they felt disconnected. They said, yeah, we can come to the presentations because they're hybrid presentations, but we miss out on the networking and the connection
Mhm.
with other people. And so with the cooking experiences, they're able to serve the remote attendees in a different way, because while the in-person attendees are eating lunch and connecting, now they're also providing a virtual experience for the people that are attending virtually. So I think it's a lot about trying to create non-work places where people can connect, whether that's creating a cooking experience or a coffee hour or a virtual happy hour. You're no longer going to be able to run into people naturally in those spaces in person. So I think it's really important to create those spaces online for people to connect.
That's great. Now, do you just work with corporations or do you work with individuals as well?
I My main focus is corporations and individual, or my main focus is corporations,
Mhm.
but I also work with individuals as well, because I do understand the importance of being able to connect with friends and family and anyone
Mhm.
else you want to connect with in an um, that you might not be able to see a lot of, or that you want to create and foster a better relationship with them. So absolutely.
That's great because our listeners have both. There's corporate people as well as individuals that might be interested. That's why I asked. I think it's so interesting because when the pandemic first started, um, you know, I have a lot of friends all over the country, and we started doing Zoom get-togethers. And I thought, why haven't we done this before the pandemic? I mean, I don't get to see these people on a regular basis. And it was such an eye opener that now you can connect with people from all over the country or all over the world just with a virtual tool. And it's really, really impactful, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you. It opened up a whole new way for us to connect that we never really thought of before. And it also pushed us to have to figure it out. We might not have put the effort in if we if we weren't put in that situation. And so now that we've been in that situation, now the possibilities just keep growing of how we can
Mhm.
connect with people in different parts of the world, and that makes it really exciting.
Yeah, I agree. So, this podcast is focused around bridging culture, pay, and employment gap for women in tech. So, what are
Mhm.
you seeing from your lens in the industry today?
What I'm seeing is, and something that I'm extremely passionate about, is that I believe corporations and organizations and everybody wants to see more women in STEM. And in order to be able to retain women in STEM, we have to create a culture in which women want to stay. And I say
Mhm.
this out of experience of being a woman in STEM and not feeling like I belong. I was told
Mhm.
I was too quiet, and then I was told and then when I started speaking up, they told me I was now aggressive and too talkative. And
Mhm.
I found myself trying to adapt to a culture that was not designed for me. It was
Mhm.
designed for the male dominated culture where it came from. And so going forward, I think it's really important to be able to, that companies and organizations focus on creating a culture that's for men and women, not just for the people that are there now.
I think that's so important. We did some training sessions. We do IT training, and we did some training sessions that were just all women. And those were so successful and so powerful because they had a sense of belonging. They didn't have a sense of competition with each other. They didn't have to feel less confident because maybe they don't know the IT technology as well. And so it really, really made a difference. So I think what you're saying is to create a culture where women want to stay is so powerful. That's really, really great.
Yeah, and I also think what you said about confidence, it's kind of the chicken or the egg situation, is that you have to be able to empower women in the culture in order to help them feel confident, to be able to contribute to the team, to contribute to innovation, to be able to show up as their best self in the workforce. Where if they're not able to feel like they belong, they're not going to speak up, and they're not going to be able to give their insight or perspective, and they're not going to feel confident. And then what ultimately suffers is the product or whatever the team is innovating, because they're not hearing all the different perspectives at the table.
Yeah. What challenges have you experienced in this male-dominated industry? I know all women have experienced some challenges. What have you experienced?
I have experienced, I think I have been undermined and dismissed a lot. I think that is probably the most common one. And also, I noticed that when men were promoted within 2 to 3 years, women were promoted probably after 7 years. And some might say, some women would say, I didn't feel confident enough, I wasn't applying for jobs or thinking that they were qualified. Other women say, I was really trying to make it to the next level, and they kept telling me that I wasn't good enough, that I didn't have enough experience, or that I was missing something in order to make it to that next level. And so that is what really has influenced me, is just being undermined and dismissed and not feeling empowered in the position, and then also not having the opportunity to be promoted as quickly as men. I will say that I have been on teams that have been incredibly inclusive, even though it was male dominated, even though I was the only woman. The leader really created an inclusive culture, and that is when I felt the most empowered. The leader didn't tell me how to act, or what I should be doing better, or what I should be doing better, or how to talk to people. More of a wanting everyone to bring their ideas to the table in order to innovate faster. And he had a very successful team because of it.
That's great. And I'm always, always encouraging allies. We need those male allies to help us get to that next level. And there's so many good ones out there. And so I actually, for this podcast, started a different segment, an additional segment that says mentors that make a difference. And so we've had a few men that are really champions and allies for women, and we want to continue to grow that pool of males as well.
I completely agree. I've also had male allies as well, and they are invaluable. And that's why I always encourage too, with the cooking class, what you mentioned with when you gather women, there isn't that male dynamic, but it's also important to have gatherings where men are present in order to have allies in the tech space, in order to move to that next level, in order to have more women leaders, in order to have women want to stay.
Completely agree. Completely agree. So if you look back on your career, is there anything that you wished you had known then that you know now?
Oh. Yeah, I think the main thing that I wish I would have known is building my business is being able to find mentors that have also made that similar transition from STEM into business. I didn't go to school for business.
Mhm.
And what I realized is in the STEM field we are taught to think a certain way.
Mhm.
And that doesn't always resonate with people that haven't come from the STEM field. And and finding those mentors in STEM has been completely invaluable. And so that's something that I've been really focusing on is finding mentors that I really understand their thought process. They help me make breakthroughs faster because I understand them quicker and I understand how they think and how they're processing information.
I think that's so good that you said that because I don't think I've ever thought about that. I have, I'm fortunate enough to have a business background, but then also a technical background. So I've kind of learned to kind of meld the two. But if you're just doing the technical side and you're just doing STEM, you might not be exposed to a lot of the business reasons why organizations do certain things. And so I think that is very, very powerful. I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah, it took me a while to figure it out, and it wasn't until I connected the two and actually started working with people that just work in business that didn't have
Mhm.
any background. I didn't quite understand what they were. I realized I didn't quite understand what they were saying. I understood what they were saying, but I didn't know how to apply it and put it into
Mhm.
action. And
Mhm.
so it was just a really huge light bulb moment for me.
Right. I mean, and it's something we see all the time. You know, when we're training IT people, they have a mindset that's very good at IT, but they don't have the communications or the business side of it to sell those ideas to the C-level folks. So it is really important to have some of both.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Kimberly, this was so amazing. I loved chatting with you. So, in closing, who inspires you and why?
I think what the people that really inspired me are the ones that during my classes there is always this moment where there's a switch where people realize that they are no longer alone, that they
Mhm.
have more in common with other people than they think, or they learn something new about someone and then they think, oh my gosh, I thought I was the only one.
Mhm.
And it and I feel so privileged that they come to my class, that they attend a class, and I get to hear it, and I get to see that transformation that happens, because every time that we can connect in a new way, it's one step closer to closing the gender gap in STEM or creating better relationships and have a sense of belonging. So I think that that's just really exciting.
That's very cool. And that's definitely inspiring. I can see that. I can see why you say that's so inspiring because I can see it happening, and
Mhm.
it really makes you feel so good. So, can you share with our listeners how they can get a hold of you?
Absolutely. You can go to my website from markettotable.com, and I welcome you to join my email list. I have a corporate class only email list, and then I also have an email list if you want recipes along with what's all the updates and new happenings with my corporate classes as well.
That's great. Well, I know a lot of our listeners will look you up and probably sign up for some of your classes. So
Oh, I'm
thank
so
you.
excited.
Yeah, thank you, Kimberly, so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it, and I had a lot of fun talking to you.
I had so much fun talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Tech in the Right Direction. Please take a minute to subscribe or follow so that you never miss an episode. Also, don't forget to like, share, and comment.
Thank you. See you next week.
From IT skill enhancements to end-user adoption training, Directions Training is your resource to help optimize the effectiveness of your technology investments. Over 500,000 students have taken advantage of our wide selection of technology and business training solutions covering the most popular applications today, such as Microsoft 365, Azure, Windows 10, and more. As a podcast listener, we invite you to take advantage of an exclusive offer. Receive 30 days of free access to our Microsoft official curriculum on-demand courses for IT professionals or end users. Visit us at www.directionstraining.com/podcast to claim this offer today. Hurry, this offer is only available for a limited time. Success is a journey. Ask for directions.